Hi and welcome back. In this tour we're going to take a look at the main toolbar, and we're also going to look at how to construct a tour while we're doing it. So the first thing we want to do is we want to search for a place. Now I could of course zoom in or zoom out, but I can also use the search feature. And I'll search for Prague. There we go, it's going to zoom us right in there. And let's say that I want to get in even closer. So I zoom in a little further so that maybe I can see a little more of the city. And once you get in there, you can also change your angle. So if there's a better perspective that you'd like, you can use this tool up here to change the orientation so you can get a different perspective. Okay, and this is taking just a second to load, but it should load fairly quickly. And let's just say that now this is the perspective that I like. This is exactly where I want to be, and I'd like to be able to bring here you go, famous area of the city. I'd like to be able to bring people back here to this image. So the first thing that I can do is I can put a pin right where I want people to come to. So there's my pin, and I'm going to put it right here by the bridge, and I've got to give it a name. So the name, I'll just name it Prague. Okay, this button lets you choose an icon, and this is what your default is normally going to come to. But if you'd like it to be something different, you can choose from these. You could download and add a custom icon here if you wanted. It's not hard. You find one on the internet, you save it, you browse to it, you import it. But let's just say that I'm going to use this symbol here. Once you choose a symbol, you can determine its scale. So you can see if you don't like that size, you can make it larger. You can make it smaller. You can adjust its opacity, so you can make it semi-transparent by doing this, although I think in a lot of cases that defeats the purpose. You're putting the pin in there for it to stand out, so I generally leave it at 100%. Also, if you don't like the color, you can adjust that in here. Let's just go with that. We say OK. Yep, that was a bad choice. So let's just go with something. Okay. Once you have those choices down, you've got to save it. So we've got to get down here to the bottom of the screen, and we'll say OK. And there it is. It's listed over there. Okay, I can click on that icon again, and here it is now. It's been put in my folder over here. Speaking of which, this is starting to look a little crowded, so I'm going to close up my layers since I don't need them. That'll give me a little more room to work. Okay, if I want to edit that, I can right click on it and come to Properties, and it brings me right back into the screen. Now, other options that are available anytime you put a pin in, you can come down here and you can also add some descriptive text. So a great place to visit, and other things you can do is you can put an image in. This allows you to grab the URL of an image, something you find on a website on the internet, but you can also add a local image, which means you're going to be able to browse. Now I don't have one at the moment, so let me pop open the window quick, and I'll just come in here, Prague, images. We'll just take this one, small one, save image, put it anywhere. I'm going to leave it in my downloads. And now that that's done, all I have to do is I have to add the local image here. So I'm going to go to my downloads file, see if I can find it in there. There it is. Open it up. It's going to look like this, but it's going to display okay, at least on this computer. The other thing that you can do is you can put in a hyperlink. So I'm going to make some room down here, say learn more about Prague, and I'll flip back to the internet for a second. Let me come up to Prague and just go to regular search results. And let's pretend where I want this Wikipedia article. So I can click on there, I can copy the address, and I can highlight this text and I can turn it into a hyperlink. So I'm going to put the link text in there. Okay. Okay. Now, notice that this gets filled out a little bit on the left, and if I double click on it, it pops up with this nice picture. And if I click on that link, it brings up this Wikipedia page. It's taking a couple of minutes to load, but it should load right into space. There you go. Back to Google Earth. So that's how I put a pin in and mark a particular place. And I can mark a series of places. If I can close up the search for a second. If I look at this other tour I did, this one was in Spain. And so I created, let's go there. My first one was just a general overview of Spain. It's actually covering Spain there. The second one brought us down into Madrid. And you can look at the picture, you can click the link, etc. But when you're done, I'd recommend closing it so you get this nice view here. And then of course you go on to the next place, which is Escorial. This one, a picture seems to be missing, but that's how you construct a tour. You put together a series of points like that. Now there are a couple of other things that you can put on here. It's not just limited to points. So let's zoom out here a little bit, or not even. We can just do a search and it'll bring us there, back to where we were. Okay, I'm not going to pin it this time because I've already got it pinned, but I can zoom in. Now, if I don't like the particular perspective that I chose, I can adjust that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come here. Okay, and if I didn't like that perspective, I could change it here. Get it just the way I like it. Maybe zoom in a little more. And then I can right click and I can say snapshot view. And then this exact image is what's going to be displayed in the end. Now, next thing that you can put is you can put a path. So let's say that I wanted to trace part of the path of this river. That was important to me. So what I can do is now I can use this third tool over here. Okay, so it's an untitled path, and I'm going to call it River near Prague. Probably should have looked up the name of it. And I'm going to say OK. And what you can do is just click along . Let's leave it at that. Okay, I can put text here if I want. I don't have to if I don't want to. I can go to Style and Color. This is a line, so I can make that line thicker. Let's make that line, let's say 5. Let's make that line that purple color. And there you go. Say OK. So that's now showing that line that way. Second thing I can add, you notice that I added two here. The first one I should have been clicking before I did it, so I'm just going to delete that first one. Right click and delete. And I can right click and I can go to properties on this one, and I can just rename it back to what I wanted it to be from the get-go. So there you go. Anytime you want to re-enter something to work on it, just right click on it, go to properties. We've already looked at the style options that are available for lines. And then here's the view, but I wouldn't set the view that way. I would set the view, it's just easier to get in where you want. Maybe change the perspective a little bit. Zoom where you want it, place it where you want it, and then at that point you can, as long as you can select that line, we can actually do it over here, it's a little easier, and say snapshot view. Okay, another thing that we can do is we can get a shape. So we've looked at lines, we've looked at points. The next step would be to get a shape, and let's say that for some reason we want to put a shape around this outcropping of mountains or rocks right here in the middle, and we just get the polygon tool. We're going to give this an actually we're not going to give it a name just yet. We're just going to go around here very roughly. This does seem to be pretty roughly. A little tough there where I can't see it so well. So what I can do with this to make that a little easier is if I come to style and color, there's an opacity setting here. So I could have set that opacity way down. Let's just make the opacity 20. Oh, come on. Properties, style. Oh, this is the line color. I'm sorry, I should have been taking the opacity over here. Make that 10%. Now we can see through it. Now I can move some of these things and make some adjustments here to get a better view. And then when I'm done, if I want to leave that, if I want to bring that opacity back up, I just bring it back up. I just say that's going to be 100. We're going to say the color of that is going to be this color, and that the line color is actually going to be red, so that I can see it, and we can do, you know, line thickness and all that. Okay, so different types of things that you can put on there, and that's an untitled shape, so I'm going to just title it mountains and city, whatever. Again, you can put additional text, you can put messages in here. I'm not doing it right now, but be aware that you can do that. That's these three tools. This tool, the first tool up here, simply turns on and off the side menu. We've looked at pins, we've looked at polygons, we've looked at lines. This is an additional layer. We're not going to look at that one right now. We'll come back to tour in a minute. This one is potentially very cool, but a lot of times it doesn't have that great an impact. It's called the timeline, and so you could bring this back and you would see photos of the city from previous eras, but you can see that it only goes back as far as 2002 when I guess Google was starting to collect this information. So a lot of times you're not going to see much of a difference at all. Sometimes you will, but a lot of times you won't. It's just not enough data in there yet. The next tool, notice how it darkens. It's simply telling you that it's dark there at this particular time. So if I was back at a global view, you'd actually see the line where day and night shows on the globe. This tool is just, so right now we're in Google Earth, but there's also something called Google Sky. So if I were to click on that, bring your way out here, and it's showing you stars. This is, you can actually get this as an app on your phone. It's a great app because you can hold it up to the sky and you can match all the stars and constellations, etc. They've got one for the moon and for Mars. Let's get back to Earth for a second. You should be familiar with this particular tool. This is just temporarily giving you a measurement. So say those mountains are about 1.57 miles long, if you want to call it that, and then its widest reasonable point. Let me clear that. At its widest reasonable point here, it's about a mile. So you could save those, or you could just use it as a temporary thing. So let me save that one. We'll call that width. Sorry, I don't really need a tag down there. Width of mountains. I'll say OK, and now it just becomes a point over here. That actually went into the temporary folder. You'll notice some of this other stuff is just laying here under my places, but we can reorganize that in a minute. You've got email options, printing options, etc. Okay, that covers the basics of the tools and the things that you would be using. The last thing there is to look at making this into a tour. And what I'd like to do first is I'd like to organize my space over here a little bit. You'll notice that I'm in this My Places area, and these triangles are closed, so that's actually a tour there under the sightseeing tour, and this is a collection of things around Madrid, so there's more there than it seems. But all this stuff is kind of loose and floating around. So what I want to do is I'll right click on there over the top of something, and I will say, it's not giving me the option there. Okay, I'll just go to add a folder up on the top, and the folder's name is going to be Prague Tour, and you can see there it is. So now I'll put things in the order that I want them. So the first thing I wanted was this, the actual pin for Prague, and I put it in the tour place. And then I wanted the line, so I'll bring that in. I wanted the mountains, so I'll bring that in. And then the width of the mountains here. Now, this of course, we ordered them a little bit. Okay. So, in actuality, this isn't much of a tour. But what I had done is I'd picked points in different cities and gone from one place to another, which I'll show you in a minute. It would have been better. But right now, I can simply double-click Prague. It's going to bring me to that original snapshot view that I saved. It's going to open my message and my picture. It's going to provide me with a hyperlink, so somebody can learn more about it here through Wikipedia or whichever website you choose to mark. We'll come back to your tour here, and then we just go on to the next stop in the tour, which in this case is a rather poorly marked view of that river. Over here we're going to move to that block of mountains or hills in the center of the city, and then just zero in a little bit on the width of the mountains. Okay, let's take a look at this Madrid tour instead. Now notice up at the top it's got something that I didn't have in the other space, and it's this little camera. So if I double click on that little camera, you can see that I've taken those places and I've created them as a tour. So it's taking a little second to load, but I'm going to start it here. So this is telling me that the tour is about Spain. Here's a quick tour of some fascinating sites in and around Madrid. Come on. There it is. It's playing now. So you can see the first step is to kind of show the area, After a couple of minutes, it should start to zoom in. There you go. It pops up information, and you can see this is like a timeline. It's playing along here. Probably could have done the timing a little better. Now you've got a picture of Madrid in the center, center of the city. Taking a little while for that to build out, the imagery. It pops up some information about Madrid while we're there, and then moves us along to the next stop on the tour. And you can see down at the bottom that this tour or this movie is just playing. So it's going by itself. So the question is, how do we go about creating that tour? Let me stop this one. We don't need to watch the whole thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to this Prague tour and open it up. Let me close up the Madrid tour. Okay, I've double-clicked on the folder, and that backed me out to an expanse that includes everything that I put in my tour. So I'm ready to start. I'm in a good position to start here. I simply go up and I click the Record a Tour button. It looks like a little handheld camera. And then down at the bottom I have this microphone. Once I click this microphone, if I click this microphone, I can do a voiceover the tour, which is usually a good option. If I just simply click the button over here, I can record it without audio, which might be appropriate if I wanted to run that tour while I was somewhere that I was going to be speaking live. But for now, let's try it with recording the audio. So I click. Notice the timer is running. And I say, welcome to this tour of Prague. Today we're going to look at some interesting things. You can see me opening the menu over here right now, but they won't see that. It's only recording over in this area. So whereas I'm going to make some reference to what I'm doing over here, obviously you wouldn't be doing it during the tour. So you would be saying, okay, Prague is a historic and beautiful place, and let's now go take a look and learn something about it. Now I double click over there and it starts the tour. Okay, the old city, the historic old city is a must-see. The river is crossed by a series of bridges that are beautiful architecturally, etc. And, you know, I definitely recommend you come here. And then I double-click on the next piece. One of the keys to Prague's development is the river that ran through it. During medieval times, the largest cities were often centered around rivers because they offered great transportation. Then I'd come maybe open this one up and I'd say one interesting feature about Prague is that while it's generally fairly flat, there's one area of the city where hills and mountains rise up to a greater extent. And these mountains, or these hills, have a total width of about a mile across and a little more than a mile in length. Now, of course, my tour is very fractured, but you get the idea of technically how to put it together. Now, when you're done, you simply come and you click the red stop button, and the tour will start to play. I'm going to click the pause here, but this would just simply play through and I would hear everything that I said. And if I like the tour, I say save. I click the little save button over here. I give it a title, and I say Tour of Prague. I can add additional things here, such as pictures or text or title or something. I can always come back and do that later. And there it is. It happened to drop into that Prague folder where the other things were. I'm simply going to drag it and move it to the top. And you want to keep all these pieces because you might decide in the future that you wanted to make some changes to what you said. You might want to re-record the tour. You might want to add or delete some locations, do an alternate version, etc. But as far as playing the tour, this is the only thing you really need right here. And as a matter of fact, you can right-click and you can say Save Place, and it's going to offer to download this as a KMZ file for you. So I can download this and I can email it to someone. I can post it on the web as a link for people to download, and they can bring this into Google Earth and see the tour. Okay, so those are the basics of using the tools, the basics of creating the tours, and the rest really just has to do with good planning and good design. So great tool, interesting stuff, and we're going to be doing a project with this. I'm going to ask you to do a short project with it this week, not too extensive. I just want you to get used to the tool and how to build something with it.